Oh, okay. Well, it's too late because we're already broadcasting. Um,
Hello. Okay.
hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 70 of Penny Red. I'm Daniel Hodges.
And I'm Sean Hayworth, and joining us tonight is a good friend of ours, project manager at Evil Hat, wearer of many hats, not all of them evil, organizer of Big Bad Con, Mr. Sean Hayworth. I almost called you Sean Hayworth.
How many beers have you
see
had?
what-
It's only like 2 sips I've seen so far. What a lightweight.
I knew you were going to do that when Daniel asked if you could introduce Sean Nittner, Sean Hayworth. I was just sure it was going to happen. Well, hello. Thank you guys for having me on the show.
Well, after that ham-fisted introduction, before we kick on into the show, while Sean Hayworth has still got some, has actually managed to going to speak clearly. I got a message from a listener relating to what we talked about last week. And Sean Hayworth and Sean Nittner are both experts of burning wheels, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut for the next little bit. But this listener was asking about. First of all, changing Burning Wheel, or at least adapting Burning Wheel to a post-apocalyptic 2107 game. Now, it's not post-apocalyptic in as much as there was a virus or a, like a nuclear weapon or something. It was something much more serious than that. The electricity went out, and all of those electric sort of things that were like maybe a polarity shift or something. I didn't get those details, but bottom line, there's no electricity. There hasn't been for 100 years, so that sort of affected life in as much as it's gone back to a semi-feudal sort of state. Could you use Burning Wheel for that scenario? And if so, how would you adapt it?
That's tricky, because if it was just like regular future,
Right.
excuse me, I would say Burning Wheel itself, not such a great choice.
Right.
And I'm not sure that it's such a great choice, even like with the tweak to the setting. But you can strip out a lot of the meta mechanics of Burning Empires and use some of the lower tech index bits and pieces in there to do a pretty passable modern day setting.
But this sounds like it is a regressive modern setting where
It is, yeah. It's definitely,
it's meant to do. So what you'd have to. So a big challenge that you'd have is that the life path system is a huge chunk of the game, and it's the way the characters are built, but it also kind of is also the direction that they're going to be going based on the life paths they take and the skills and the traits that they generate. And I mean, if all you want to do is just say this is the future, but it works like fantasy, then you can just say that and play Burning Wheel. But if you want to actually incorporate post-apocalyptic elements, you're going to have to bake those in to the life paths into the character burning. And I mean, you may not need firefight from Burning Empires, because it sounds like the conflicts may be fought with sword and crossbow, and Burning Wheel might be fine for it. But it's not going to really have like any mechanical impact or significance unless you're willing to go and start either reskinning some of the life paths and calling them by different things, or actually creating new ones and creating new appropriate traits. I think traits would be the big thing that would make it stand out to me, and possibly some skills. I mean, because I can't imagine we would lose all of the knowledge we have right now. So some of those skills would have to be reflected.
Yeah. There actually used to be a post-apocalyptic Burning Wheel setting called Under a Serpent Sky, or Under a Serpent Sun, which I think I still have a PDF of somewhere on my hard drive. But it was actually pulled by Luke and Company because it just never worked. Like, it just didn't. It didn't do the things that they needed it to do to make it a functional game. Reskinning the life paths works fairly well, kind of.
Yeah,
it's tricky because the life path as written is pretty much straight up 14th century France, and pretty solidly like in that medieval vein.
Right. Well, the humans one are. The human
yes. The life paths of men. What you can do If the life paths aren't doing it for you and it's going to be a pain in the butt, is pick up the monster burner and just monster burn all your characters. You get custom traits if you need them to be weird. Like somehow you can do that. You don't have to go through the life path system. It's like a really complicated point buy. I don't think once you get it down, it would take significantly longer, but it's also not something I would recommend for beginning players.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, is that the monster burner is a challenge to use when you're used to already burning characters. It's another, in terms of technical difficulty, it's another level of challenge on top of that. So I would never want to say, oh, you're going to make a new character, just monster burn it. Like, if this is the first time you've made a character, you could do it, but it would be challenging and you wouldn't have a good sense of what the traits mean and what the values mean because you weren't familiar with the game. And if you had burned up a bunch of characters and played, you'd get a sense of, okay, get a sense of what the significance of something was. So yeah, you can, but I don't particularly think Burning Wheel is a I think minor derivations on the fantasy setting, like what fantasy setting you want, is totally great.
Right.
But I don't think it's a great system to go hacking to wildly different settings. It's not made for that.
Yeah, it's very resistant to tinkering because everything's built in so tightly. So when you start futzing with stuff and start like tweaking rules to match your setting, like things will go haywire very quickly, and in unexpected ways. I would recommend an Apocalypse World.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some great games to do that. Or if you wanted to have a game that was not about savagery in post-apocalyptic but rebuilding, I'd recommend Quiet Year. But I wouldn't say Burning Wheel. It would not be my go-to.
Okay, so Quiet Years by whom? Who made Quiet Years?
Joe McDondolo.
Okay.
So.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so let's assume, though, that this person, because I've got a couple of other questions here, and there may be something that other people are interested in. It's certainly something I'm interested in myself, which is we didn't talk a lot about it, but in terms of resolving small physical conflicts, how because that goes a little bit also into Torchbearer as well. Like, how do you sort of gloss over these small conflicts? Like, how does that play out?
Actually, incredibly elegantly. That's one of the nice things about Burning Wheel, is that it's got a really good zoom control built into the mechanics. Most things, if they're really unimportant, like if it's really just an obstacle to overcome, like it's a chasm you have to jump over disguised as a dude with a sword.
Right.
Really, you can just resolve it in one roll. Like. You could even make it a static obstacle.
Sure.
Like,
this guard, knocking out this guard is going to be an OB3 sword check to knock him out without him being able to pull the alarm.
Right.
And then the consequence of that might be that you knock him out, but he pulls the alarm, or the consequence might be that he catches you in advance, and now you're in a dialogue with him. I mean, yeah, it's totally fine if the conflict is small to make it a very simple mechanic. Also, Burning Wheel really encourages you not to roll on stupid stuff.
Yes.
Like, if you're a badass sword fighter and there's like two, scrappy peasants that are, accosting you, it's totally reasonable to be like, I kick their asses. And you're like, yeah, you do. You totally kick their asses. And that might cause consequences. That might cause the town to be upset that you're, you just stabbed a peasant. But, like, that might be interesting, but the fight probably isn't.
Yeah, right. And so, going along a little bit with that, is there much character advancement after your character has been burned in terms of how skillful they are?
Oh, God, yes. Okay, it sort of depends. If you have a very, very, very powerful character that is extremely skilled in the things you're going to be doing most, then it's challenging to advance the character. Right. But if you burn a character with like the recommended 4 life paths, you're going to suck at so many things, and you're only going to be pretty good at a lot of things, and you might be badass at 1 or 2 things. And everything you're not unbelievably badass with at start, you're going to be constantly advancing. It's really satisfying. Like every game, you're like, I got 3 checks over here. I got 3 tests over here, and I got a routine one here, and I got a difficult one there. It's you're constantly getting advancements in small.
So is that guy that's is that guard or those peasants? Are they ever going to be a sufficiently large problem that it's not just a one-roll check?
Oh yeah,
could be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. There's no definitive answer there, because one of sort of the conceits of the game is that the things that are challenging for one character are not necessarily the things that are challenging for another character.
Right.
Like a couple of angry peasants, probably not that big of a deal to an armored knight on horseback, right? Like even if you can't cut him down, you can ride him down. Maybe with one roll or something. That same mob of angry peasants to a squire or to a stable boy, that's a huge deal.
Right.
So yeah, all of those things scale very well to the abilities of the character that is being challenged at the time.
Right. And it's funny, somebody on the Burning Wheel G+ community was just talking about character balance. I was like, Burning Wheel is really not about balance. The game does not even attempt to make one particular path balanced with another, one race balanced with another. I mean, elves are just badass, just hands down. And so it's totally possible for you to have 2 starting characters where, one is a peasant would be no challenge, and another, they would have to find another way around. They would be trying to calm the mob, or running away, or calling on a city guard. They just, for them, fighting that angry mob would be a very bad choice.
Yeah, right. But that's the thing, right? That's not really what Burning Wheel is about. Is not sort of grinding through a whole bunch of peasants and gaining those tiny little bits of experience points. It's about the difficulties that occur along the way. At least that's my impression of it.
It's about the peasants who want to burn down the house that your mom's still in.
Right, exactly.
Decide, well, do I run to save myself, or do I fight them off to protect my mom, or do I try to convince my mom she's crazy for staying in the house?
Right.
And that she won't give up because it's where her family, where she was raised and lived all her life.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think we've hit most of those questions. So let's move on from there to your wicket, I suppose, Sean Nittner, which is tell us about what's going on with Evil Hat Fate Core, at least initially.
Sure. Well, I just put up 2 hangouts. Were just listed. I'll give you the URLs for them so you can throw them in the show notes if you want. Where I interviewed, actually there's 3 up now total, where I interviewed the creators of Fate Worlds and of Fate System Toolkit. And so they came on and talked about their setting or their section of the toolkit and what they did with it, and that was super exciting. That was a lot of fun. Those are supplements for Fate Core. Fate Core, this may be old news for some people, but Fate Core was an incredibly successful Kickstarter. The first draft was already ready the moment the Kickstarter started. And it's gone through 4 revision passes, and it has gone into layout, and we've had an insane amount of art. I think I counted it. I hand counted it once. It was something like 150 pieces of art created by Kurt Komoda, which is just gorgeous. The art was finished, the layout was finished, the indexes were finished. We have sent it off to the printer, and we are expecting it to be shipping out to folks very soon. So probably any day we'll get a message that it's coming out. Definitely by early July. So really around the corner.
Yeah. Check your mailboxes. So one thing, I'm not sure if you can talk about this, but maybe able to speak generally. This is something that's come up a couple of times. But the shipping in America, the way that the price has gone up crazy style in the last little bit. Do you have any advice for people that are thinking about doing Kickstarters regarding shipping from someone inside an extremely successful Kickstarter where shipping is a component of the money that people pledge?
Well, Fred is the guy who cuts all the checks and who has to deal with all the crazy price increases, and he knows it much more intimately. Brian Engard, who is one of the great talents of the hat, has his own Kickstarter that he just started, which is the Kickstarter, which is Becoming, and I'll be happy to talk about that because it's something I'd like to promote a little.
Sure.
But the first thing Brian did before he launched the Kickstarter was He Ran It by Fred. So sorry to pin you down like this, Fred, but my best advice would be to run your numbers by somebody who's already run a successful Kickstarter and who understands the shipping costs. Kickstarter has a lot of rules about the cost of shipping. They can't exceed 25% of the total cost of a pledge level. So that means shipping cheap things is basically impossible. You can't really ship a $5 product, because if it's $5 in shipping, then that's 50% of the pledge cost.
Right.
So you're going to have your product cost enough that the shipping will not exceed 25%. Right. Also, shipping is a zero. Like, there's no profit in shipping. You don't make any money when you do it, whereas you make money on your product. But Kickstarter takes the same portion. They takes the same portion out of the top. Like, they don't. Kickstarter doesn't acknowledge that when someone pledged, say, $25, that $5 of that went to shipping, and so they shouldn't be dinging you for it. Dinging. I mean, they charge their commission off the total of everything. Right. So you've got to factor in that even when someone gives you $5 or $10 for shipping, you don't actually get that. You get that minus Kickstarter's fees.
Wow, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, and with a product, you can kind of eat that, because you can go, oh, well, I'm already marking the product up, so I can kind of like absorb some of that because it's a direct to market thing. I'm cutting out all the middlemen, so Kickstarter's fees are really minimal compared to what distribution and all that would cost. Yeah. But or how much they would take, rather, not they would charge. But with shipping, you're paying the mailman, and not getting all of that money to pay them is rough. Yeah. So I think you almost have to build that a little bit into the profit margin of your product, that you're probably going to lose money on shipping, but know that hopefully you're profiting enough on your product that it can absorb it. Use media mail, but know that media mail can only ship books. You cannot ship games with any components in them. Right. So if you have a game that is not a standard, just straight up book, media mail is, or CD, I guess, but we're talking about RPGs. Media mail is not going to work, and you're going to have to use a more expensive method. So I would, just plan it out way in advance and expect it to go up.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it lots of times in the past. Like Kickstarter is not just It's not just a solution like, here, give me money. Oh, I've got money now. Here you go. Have something. There is so much more to it. And I was reading an article about a chap who made a board game. I don't know if you guys read this. Who just got destroyed. Lost his house and a whole bunch of other stuff. Some of it, I think, was mismanagement on his behalf. But the takeaway message I got from that is that it's a binding contract, right? Like you're saying, here's what I'm giving you when you give me the money, and you have to satisfy that. So you can't then go, hang on a minute, this is not.
Well,
I think there's been a couple that have.
There have been some horror stories with Kickstarters that, the impression of the backers was they took the money and run. I don't think that ever happens. I don't think anyone actually just takes the money and is like, haha, I'm going to Tahiti. Although I did encourage Fred. I was like, dude, why are we making this book? It's already half done. Let's just send it on PDF. Forget art or layout. Let's just shoot it out to them right now, and let's take it to Tahiti. That was after I got hired on. Before I got hired on, no, I'm just kidding. I don't think anyone has the intention of abusing the system, but there's not a lot. It's hard for the backers to put much leverage on the creator, other than social leverage. I mean, they can comment away. I'm sure there could be lawsuits and whatnot, but unless it was a class action suit, what are they going to sue for? How much they paid for the product? The $30 they pledged, right?
Yeah.
So
well, mention that it's not really an investment. Like there's this weird thing where people are like, Kickstarter isn't really a pre-order, and it seems like, it really kind of is.
Daniel, what's the swearing? Can we swear on the show?
Of course.
Yeah, fuck that shit. You're paid a pledge level, right? You're in your pledge. It says you're going to get this thing. Even if it's a long time before you get it, you should get the goddamn thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That was some of the comments that the guys said on there, which was people like, it's tough, but where's my game?
Yeah.
And that's and it came down to shipping again. Right, and I read it like a year ago. I was reading an article about it, and this woman talking about a nightmare with shipping. And it seems that almost without exception, people that have had trouble, it's always been associated with shipping. Yeah. So do your numbers carefully with that. And I'm never going to mention shipping ever again on this show.
I mean, here's the thing: is you can a lot of places for a book will charge $5 in shipping, because that is almost what you're going to pay in shipping. You're probably going to pay more than that, and it's not even still covering your packaging.
Yeah.
Consider that if you're going to charge $5, it cannot be more than 25% of the thing. So you basically cannot sell a product on Kickstarter that does not cost more than $15.
Right.
If you're trying to sell a physical product that you're going to ship to somebody and it's less than $15, don't use Kickstarter. I mean, don't. Right. I don't know. Don't. It's a bad model. So hopefully you have a product that's $20 and up, and so there's a little bit of leverage, and you can, charge you could charge a few more dollars shipping to cover your costs.
Yeah.
Right.
I could not kickstart something here in Canada as it is already. It costs me like $16 to $17 to send a book, even in Canada.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It takes 6 weeks. That's just.
Do you have a slow boat from China media mail option in Canada?
No. The cheapest that I can send a book to, and I've sent a couple of games to Sweden and to England and Germany and France and so forth, and each one of those, even if it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks, is still $16, $17. The cheapest I can send is like that. If I want to send it so that it gets there in a week or so, you're talking about $50, $45, $50.
Yeah.
Wow. Clearly there's no advantage to you for being a member of the British Commonwealth.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And we're seeing that with Fate Core on international shipping. I mean, with domestic shipping, we're kind of it's a wash or it's a loss, but it's a really minimal loss.
Yeah, it's negligible.
But it hurts to ship all the international orders out.
Yeah.
And the people who clump their products, we appreciate. We can cover it, but it's definitely. I mean, if we were just shipping internationally, this would not be a successful Kickstarter, even with all the money we raised.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. Be successful for the post office, and that's all.
Yeah. They're loving life.
Okay. Do you want to talk about becoming a bit now, then, Sean?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to talk a little bit about it. Brian Engard is working on, just as of recently, he's working on the Atomic Robo RPG. He's working on Shadow of the Century, which is a game that will be coming out with early 2014. He did work on Fate Core and Fate System Toolkit. He worked on Bulldogs for Brennan Taylor. That was sort of his earliest Fate stuff. So Brian has been doing a lot of stuff in Fate and around it, but he's also been working on his own game for, I think, the last year and a half called Becoming. And it has a special place for me because it's all about the cost of becoming a hero. You try to become a hero, but the question is what are you going to sacrifice? And the sacrifice is built into the game, and it is something you're going to encounter. Something you're going to have to go through. It also is a story with one protagonist, and the other 3 players are the Fates, which reminds me a lot of Polaris, which has, what you kind of shift who is the protagonist and who are the three GMs, and of Dirty Secrets, where there's one investigator and a bunch of, I don't know what the GMs are in Dirty Secrets. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember what they're called, but it's basically one player.
Yeah,
and a whole bunch
and
of
so
GMs.
it's I have bitched many times about players not contributing and players not like being more active in games.
Right.
And I've said to a good friend of mine, I was like, we just need a playerless game. Forget GM-less games. I want playerless games. Like I just want all GMs collaborating and contributing. And this is clearly not that, but the fact that all of the players besides the one are contributing to the story, and it really excites me. So that's Brian Engard's Becoming. The Kickstarter is open right now. It is not quite hit its goal yet, but it's getting close, and I highly recommend you check it out.
There you go.
That's my pitch for it.
All right, good.
Brian, I hope you like that. I did that all off the cuff just for you. So.
Okay. Well, while we're talking about new things or things sort of in the works, you guys have another podcast you do called
Fire in the Garden.
Fire in the Garden. Yeah,
Fire in the Garden, which is about Torchbearer, right?
No, it's about Burning Wheel.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Season 5 might be about Torchbearer, or 4.
Yeah, no kidding. It's Torchbearer is probably the last thing we'll cover because it's the one that has been played the least.
Right.
Okay.
We know the least about it.
Right.
Okay, so your podcast is called Fire in the Garden. Is it live play? Is that what it is, or
no? It is. It's a show that is geared toward new players. Not to sound egotistical, but the inspiration. no, I was going to say the inspiration that I had for the show was
how awesome you were.
Well, there is that. I mean, that was pretty obvious. Nobody else could.
The world needs more me.
Right. Excuse me.
Come on, isn't every podcaster think that? I mean, pretty much here.
That's right, because we're all sitting here going, no, the world needs to hear what I have to say about this subject. No, there's one of the best supplements for Burning Wheel is a book called The Adventure Burner, which is out of print now, and it was only in print for like a year because it came out. And it came out as a source book for the revised edition, and it was kind of the collected commentary on all the rules and how things had been like interpreted and explained on the forums, and through play and through exploring the nuances of the games and sort of the insights that people had come up with. To really help people get the most out of the game,
right?
And then Burning Wheel Gold came out, and they incorporated like the bulk of the important stuff in that book into the rules text. But it's still a really heavy game and really hard for people to get their heads around. And as as people went through the new edition, the same sort of thing kind of happens. People come in and ask questions and learn new stuff about the system, and some of the rules had been tweaked, and as the game progressed, you find new things that are kind of emergent properties of how the game works. And so I was like, there's no way that they're going to put out a whole nother book about what these sort of best practices for playing are. So it would make sense to me to sort of have a kind of a living adventure burner, and that was the idea. Like, teach new people how to play, so that they don't have to go and bash their heads into it, which is pretty much how I did it. Like, that's how I learned how to play the game. I'm sure that's how Sean learned to play the game.
Oh, totally.
Like, you just keep doing it and like figure out why that one thing you didn't work over and over.
I had no idea when I finally learned how to do fight. Like, I don't know when it clicked. I just know that now I'm like, fight, yes! I totally want to fight. Whereas before I was terrified of it because I was like, every time I do it, I'm confused and lost. And I feel like all the players are like, why is this taking so long? It doesn't make any sense. I just want to stab him. And I hated that. I hated feeling like I was dragging players through an experience that they didn't want. And I was like forcing it on them. And it was and it finally, like, eventually it becomes comfortable enough to be like, okay, I know how to step people through this in a fast way, and I can guide them through the process rather than just floundering myself.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff in the game that's like that. Writing beliefs is huge. It's like the main gear that drives everything in the game. And it's one of the hardest things to really master and figure out how to get your head around. Like, I still write crappy beliefs every once in a while. There was what's that?
There was that one time.
There was that one time that I wrote a crappy belief.
Like 7 years.
No, I've still had beliefs where I've like gone to a session and been like, that didn't come out the way that I really intended. But yeah, there are many things that are the systems. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Keep going. I hear something that's disconcerting.
Oh, okay. The system is elegant, but it's not easy. And I think I wanted to be helpful for people who are learning how to play the game to not be frustrated.
Right. But I mean, that's not. I mean, you led off with egotistical blah blah blah, but that's not strictly speaking accurate, because don't you have a special designation amongst Burning Wheel people?
Who, me?
Yes.
No, not really. Burning fanboy, burning junkie.
But you're one of the demonstrators though, right?
Oh, yeah. Sean and I actually, at PAX last year, 2012, ran demos of Burning Wheel.
Yeah, we ran Sword over and over.
We weren't, like, appointed to do that. We just kind of volunteered. Like,
sure.
You walked up to Luke and said, hey, we'll run your game. And he was the sweetest gentleman. I mean, Luke is the most gracious host of demoers. I don't know.
Yes. Oh yeah, like it's crazy. He's so like he's just so nice about it, which is funny because like one of the biggest complaints about the game is people will get it and be like, there was a lot of interesting stuff in this game, but I just couldn't take the tone of the author. Like all I could hear is Luke Crane in my head going, "Play the game like this." And then like you run demos for him, and he's just like, "Oh, guys, thank you so much. Here, let's go out to dinner and hang out."
Luke was watching while Sean and I played Torchbearer the other night, and he was tweeting to us the entire time, giving us little guidelines. And he was like, because I was so worried. I was running the game, and I was like, well, do I know what the hell? I have 17 pages of preview rules, and I'm hacking bits together of mouse guard, and I don't know if I'm doing any of this right. And he was this total sweetheart. He's like, yeah, that's great. You're doing a great job, and try this, and here's a good idea, and sweetest guy.
Yeah, I haven't met lots of game designers. I've met quite a few, and I've interviewed quite a few as well. But it seems that a common thread is that even if you perhaps get that feeling when you're reading something that somebody's sort of telling you to do things a certain way, I don't know of any game designers that are anything other than thrilled to hear of people playing their games. No matter how they're playing. Now that's probably not exclusively true, but I would say that everybody I've met would just be thrilled to hear that somebody was taking the time to play the game. I certainly would be, no matter how somebody was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think you're excited when people get excited about the things that you made and that that drive you, that you're passionate about. I think that the common thread with Burning Wheel and the reason why that misconception might be out there is that there was a lot of people, and there's still a lot of people that try to tell Luke that he got it wrong. Like, no, if you just change the way these things work, then it would make more sense. Like, an example is like scripting doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't, if someone was swinging a sword at you, you'd just block it. You wouldn't not defend yourself. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Right,
Right.
And there's two arguments to that. One is that there's a certain kind of logic to, in the heat of battle, things are crazy and chaotic, and you don't have perfect spatial awareness, and you're not always ready for what happens.
That's what I find anyway.
Right. And two, the whole mechanic of the whole fight system or the whole dual wit system completely falls down if you don't, like, it is built upon the scripting. Like, those mechanics don't work without that scripting. There are certain moves that if you knew what the other person was doing, you would never do, and vice versa, or always
exactly.
do. And,
exactly.
So you can disagree with it, you can dislike it, but if you try to change it or tell him that it should be changed, you're going to get a stiff wall of resistance, both from Burning Wheel HQ, Luke and Tor and all those, and all the fans who are like, no, it works, shut up, just do it. Stop arguing with it. Stop trying to fix it.
Do what the game says to do.
Yeah, I was talking a little bit about it on. There was
Kool-Aid.
That's right. Pete Figtree on Ruthless Diastema. I was talking about publishing games with him and with Meg Baker and Ben Gerber and a couple of other guys whose names I don't recall, but to check that out. And one of the things about writing games, and as it applies to this, is I was reading a bit on I think somebody might have passed around G+, or maybe I read it subsequently, and I've totally lost his... Neil Gaiman was talking about people commenting on your game or commenting on something you've created. Obviously, he's a writer, but his thing was, if somebody says there's something wrong, then they're probably right. But if they tell you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong. So So that's sort of as it goes along with that, right? I mean, we're talking about people that have done it. They wrote the game, they've play tested the game, they know it like the back of their hands, and it works the way they intended for it to work. If it doesn't work for you, that says more about you than it does about the game. Maybe it's not the game for you, but that's not wrong.
Well,
right?
And I think that's the reason why Gold exists, is because they realized that, yes, there were some things that were not right with the system, but most of those things were about how it was explained to the reader. Like, a lot of that was clarifying things. And there were some things that were a little unbalanced. I mean, there were some tweaks, but, I never felt revised when we were playing it. There was certainly never, the move that just trumped all, or there was nothing that was so horribly broken. There were some moves that you're like, whoa, that's ballsy. You're going to incite? Oh, okay, all right. Good luck.
Yeah, or the steal advance in range and cover. That is insane.
Right, exactly. You just want to be shot, right?
Yeah, stand up and yell into the hail of arrows.
Right. So there were some minor tweaks of the rules, but most of the significant changes was in the presentation and the explanation and clarity. So I think you're right. People probably did have legitimate things to say this was wrong, but what needed to be fixed was how it was explained, not the system itself.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I talked to Sean Hayworth about this, Sean Nittner, and you guys maybe even have some more insight on it now. I was curious to know how how your Torchbearer game played out compared with what is actually supposed to happen. We've touched on that a little bit, but that sort of goes a little bit towards the what it's like to play a role-playing game when you've never seen somebody else do it, and how you end up playing it as compared with what the writer of the game actually intended. Have you banged up against that with Torchbearer at all yet?
Well,
go ahead.
No. You
I was going to say, because I think you and I have slightly different, not necessarily opinions, but perspectives. Since I'm a player and you're the GM in this game, it's number one. It has been insanely fun for me to figure out how this game works from piecing together this one document, which is basically hey, here's some flavor stuff, and then how to make a character, and a character sheet, and then mouse guard, and then a whole bunch of bits and pieces of interviews and blurbs about it from all over the internet. It's like some weird archaeological archaeological dig where you're like figuring out how the Antikythera device is supposed to work. Like it's crazy.
Full stop. Up to this point, I agree with Sean completely. Like, this is my exact experience. Like, I love that. I'm like, well, I know this rule from like minute 44 of this podcast, where Tor talked about the clever idea, and I know this thing because Jared said it on the Google Plus Hangout community, and I know this thing because something random that Luke tweeted. And like, it's been so much fun to try it. Like, I even asked Tor, I'm like, can you give me another little snippet? I don't want the whole thing. I want another little snippet, just a tiny piece to try and like work out some more. Anyway, continue. I just wanted to say that like I totally am on the same page.
So you're like torchbearer stalkers.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. Well, it's like this unintended mini game that has arisen. Right. From them being like, hey, here's the character creation rules. See if you can figure out how to play.
And it's a game we can only play now.
Yes.
So once we have the rules, the mystery will be gone.
Right. That's true.
In fact, I felt the exact same way about D&D 4th Edition. When the quick start rules came out, I remember playing a thief or a rogue or whatever to call them forth, and I just had a damage rating. And I was like so stoked that I just had a damage rating, and I was like, that must be that like I do like a D6 plus 2 no matter what I do. So I was like, dude, I just run up and kick him, I knee him, and I give him the gut, and I elbow him. I do a D6 plus 2. I grab a lamp and I bang him with it. I do a D6 plus 2. I use my sword and I stab him. I do a D6 plus 2. And I was so like stoked with this idea that like it didn't matter what I used. I could flavor what I did any way I wanted. And then I found out later on, no, that's actually because that was the stats of your short sword and your dex, and like you don't get to do all that. And like the warlord had this ability to allow someone to do a basic action, and the wizard could treat a magic missile as a basic action. So I was like, yeah, warlords can make wizards magic missile, awesome. And it's like, no, they can do a basic melee attack, and that's not a basic melee attack. It's and I was like, I really loved like using tiny pieces, just making it up, and I felt actually happier with what I had. I was like sad when I learned the full rules. I was like, oh, all right.
Do you find it difficult to continue with that?
Sorry?
Do you find it difficult to continue with it? Like, could you continue playing your version of 4th edition?
No. Once I know the real worlds, I got to play by them. It's over for me. So like anything we're doing in Torchbearer right now that is not right, once I find out the real worlds, I won't do it anymore. And I, you know, it might be something I enjoyed, but I'm sure I'll love it, whatever it is. Like, I'm not worried in this case. With D&D, it was a disappointment. But, you know, I will not be disappointed, I'm sure.
Yeah, with Torchbearer, I think, like, it's kind of funny, because as we've gone along, like, and more information has come out, and we figured out, like, how certain things work, I feel like it's gotten closer and closer and closer to the actual game. Yeah. Like I think there are definitely like specific things we don't know. We don't know exactly how camp works yet.
Oh. Well, here's the thing. I know there's a camp encounters table that you're supposed to roll at the beginning. I don't know what that table is. Like, it has not been released. Clinton released his version of it, which I know is not the actual version. It's just something he made up. Yep. And I know that they can't. I also know that it's supposed to be more complex than what he did, because there's supposed to be like a safe camp encounter table and a not safe camp encounter table. And he only has one table. So I'm like, well, you know what? So yeah, there's definitely parts where we're like, we know there's missing pieces and we don't have them yet.
Yeah. But
attack you guys every time you make camp. And you just have to run away every time.
That's right. The sort of the emergent thing that has come out as we've been playing this game is it started out, and I wouldn't say it was a cakewalk. Like there was a lot of stuff, but like it wasn't. Like, it didn't feel particularly challenging at the very beginning. Like so we're playing the classic Temple of Elemental Evil adventure, right? And just we've only done the first part, so we like start at the moat house and you go in and you know we dealt with. I don't even remember like what we did in the first one. There was
you mapped the area and you looked for You looked and you saw that there had been some people that had been coming through here, and you went into the tower, or one of the crumbled towers, and you fought the spider and got the ivory box that's in there.
Yeah. So there was like stuff happened and it was fun. But it didn't feel like particularly dangerous. And then as we've added in like, oh, this is how the real rules work, things have gotten progressively more and more grim. As we're wandering around, we're like, wait, these torches only last for 2 rounds. And now we're like rewriting all of our instincts, because if you make a roll when it's an instinct, it doesn't take a round to do. So we're like, how much crap can we do before we actually have to start using up resources?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because it feels like the deeper they go into the dungeon is also the more we learn about the game. So the deeper they go, the more deadly it gets. In part because they're getting into fighting more dangerous things and they're further away from escape routes, but also in part because we're learning more of the rules.
Right.
So it's like a cumulative effect of it's getting like exponentially more dangerous. They are so proper fucked right now. Like there is no direction for them to go without just something wanting to eat their faces
or steal their crap. Yeah.
Steal their crap and they're really, at this point, the decisions they made because of a consequence have really got them trapped in like no man's land. I have no idea how the hell they're going to get out of this spot. I'm like, oh my god! I hope TPKs are fun in this game. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not going to be upset if I die. Like that's just part of the game, and like there's a certain amount of fun in that. But like I seriously, we get to the end of the last session. And I've gotten injured, and it's been long enough that I haven't, like, my character hasn't had anything to eat, and I think our torch just burned out.
And you're afraid.
And I'm afraid because we were just attacked by zombies, and we don't know where we are, and like
you just need a hug, is what you're saying.
Pretty much. Well, and I'm looking at my character, and I'm like, oh, fuck, like all of our resources are going to run out. Like we cannot continue to keep going through this dungeon in the state that we're in. We need to get out. We need to get back to town and like regroup, and then like dive back in because there's got to be something worth getting.
But there's so much loot just around the corner. Around the corner.
Well, and we're in one of those situations where we're just like we don't know where we are. We don't know how to get out. Like we have to get out, but we don't know how. So like I'm just like, this is really, really dire, and I'm actually kind of like, I like look at my character sheet, and I'm like, I'm a little anxious about continuing down here, frankly, and I'm gonna have to have a word with the party leader about, you know, what we should do about this situation, because it is not good.
Yeah. Well, I ended the last scene as they crawled down. They found the secret passage in the door, in the room, which was very good that they did, because otherwise they would have had to fight their way through all these zombies rather than running from them. And they find their way down, and I'm just like looking at the map, and I'm like, and you found your way into a burial crypt. It's like that's the parting message. It's like, how can that be good when you've just been chased off by zombies to walk into a burial crypt? Like.
Unless the zombies are all from there and they're and then the other side of the door.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah, no such luck there.
No, they climbed down a secret passage. They threw a rungs down a pillar. Yeah, no, this is.
So, any more news about release dates or where people can find more information about Torchbearer?
I know that the PDF has been sent to the printer.
Nice.
So,
good.
I just saw a tweet from Luke that said that. Like while we were playing, he was editing the index of the game.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Oh yeah, it sounds like it must be pretty close there. And while I'm thinking about it, I didn't get a chance to discuss it earlier on the week, but one of the things that you Sean Nittner may be able to talk about, you've probably got editors in-house, but one of the things or indexers in-house or editors in-house, I was considering for Victoria hiring somebody to do indexing and or editing. And I came up against sort of this interesting idea, which is, what is a role-playing book? Because the lady said to me, well, what sort of book is it? Is it a technical manual, or is it a work of fiction? And I was suddenly realized that role-playing books are, at least in my experience, pretty unique objects, because there's technical stuff, and there's quite a bit of creative stuff, and there's real, you know what I mean? Like, there's real stuff and fake stuff, and I don't know, I don't know how I would describe it apart from it's a role-playing book, and if they don't know what that means from an editor's perspective, like, how do they proceed?
What it means from an editor's perspective, this is speaking as Evil Hat project manager, is you need a developmental, aka system editor, and you need a line editor. Like, role-playing games can't be edited by one person unless that one person happens to be both of those things.
Yes.
Because if they don't know your game mechanics and they don't know your system, they can't evaluate whether you got it right or not.
Yes.
And the people who know your game mechanics and your system don't necessarily know proper grammar and clarity of speech and all that. So you either need two editors, one for system and one for line editing, or you need one person who's very good at both those things.
Right.
And part of the problem with role-playing games is that if you're doing something from scratch, like Victoria, then no one is a qualified system editor.
Yes.
Like you're the only one who knows the system, and no one else does. So you almost need to breed a system editor. You almost need to get somebody that loves you, and you can play the game with you a million times until they know the game maybe as well or half as well.
Better than, like, you get somebody who's pedantic. That was somebody that I hooked up with. There's a friend of mine, Richard, who I've spoken with lots of times and have failed consistently to get on the show. But he is, and I mention him in the credits. But that's his thing, right? He's the type of guy who will find a loophole and a way to min-max it, or to get the most out of the least, and find where they can break a system. But it's teamed up with the fact that he would never actually use it. Like, he's a little bit like you, Sean Nittner, and as much as he likes his characters to suffer, and he would never give them any kind of advantage at all. So I was extremely lucky in that respect, because he's very, very talented at reading rules and understand. Like, to give you an example, have you played Arkham, the Arkham role-playing game?
Do you mean Call of Cthulhu?
No, I mean, like, the board game, the Arkham.
Yeah, Arkham Horror, the board game. Yes.
Yes.
Arkham, the role-playing game.
Sorry. Okay, no, sorry. I meant the board game.
Yes,
but,
Arkham Horror, the board game. Yes, I have played it several times.
To give you some idea of his skill with rules, I played that with him basically the first time he had played it, and it was almost seamless. Like, he's got a thing where he can read through rules and sort of put them together in such a fashion that that he's able to explain them, make the game fun, and also be the most extremely frustrating person in the world, because if you play a board game with him, you will lose, because he sees every move 10 ahead. And so if you go, I guess where I'm going with this is, if you want to get somebody to be the technical editor for your role-playing game, then get somebody who is pedantic, but nice. So I think the Freddie was this whole picking dick, but somebody who's actually nice with it. So if you can find one of those, then you're an extremely lucky person, because those are few and far between.
Yeah, I think you should drop the nice qualifier, because everybody hates their editor. Like, you hate your editor no matter what, so why get a nice editor? Because you're just going to hate them anyway, and you might as well not hate nice people, because they're going to make your life miserable.
If they're doing the job properly anyway.
I was just on a hangout with Brian Engard and Mike Olson and Jeremy Keller. We're talking about the progression of editing Atomic Robo. And Jeremy is like the kindest, coolest, most awesome editor. He's super supportive and friendly, and he makes sure to point out like where you did a good job. He doesn't just always give you just critiques. And I still think Mike wanted to strangle him from across the like it was, Mike was trying to be understanding, but at the same time he's like, dude, why don't you just love my thing? Why are you making me redo this? Why do I have to do so much more work? I thought I was done. Totally understandably, as a creator, you're like, I made this thing, it's done. And then an editor says, no, you need to do it 5 more times.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the hardest thing, is to go through it that 3rd and 4th time. You're like, I've had enough. I don't want to do it anymore. That's the way it is, and making yourself do that is hard. I'm not gonna lie. That's the hardest. At least I think that's the hardest part, is going through revision number 3, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that it is not easy to look at that thing that you created because you loved what you were creating and then hate it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and you hate it because it can't ever get to be exactly what you wanted. I also think you write something and you have this idea of what you wrote, and then if you read it 3 months later after not looking at it, you realize, whoa, I did not write what I thought I wrote. Yes. You have these ideas in your head and you think you're conveying them, and it really takes a little distance. Distancing yourself a little bit from it, and having somebody else read it to be like, dude, you didn't actually, they'll say, what do you mean here? And you explain it in person, and they're like, well, that's not what you wrote.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that this has come up, because I saw a Google Plus post by Cam Banks earlier today, and he was talking about the Marvel Heroic game, and how a lot of people, myself included, will look through that game and be like, I don't know what to do with this. Some people look at it and read through and go, oh, I understand, but there's a apparently surprising number of people that if you have somebody that knows it and can teach it to you, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
But reading the actual text, nope, couldn't tell you a damn thing about how that game works.
I have to say I own it, and I've heard a million people say it's fantastic, it's great. I've even watched people play it and look like they're having a blast of fun, and I played a lot of Cortex Plus games, and I feel comfortable with Cortex Plus. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know, but the idea that you don't make characters, that they're already there, was just an instant turnoff for me. And it's been hard for me, even though I've heard great things about it, it's been hard for me to want to jump into it, because I'm like, well, okay, Wolverine's cool, but what if I want to make my dude, And that just kind of, there's totally a time and place for I'm Jean Grey and you're Wolverine, cool, let's play.
Right.
For me, that's not in role playing games. I don't know, I don't like canon characters in role playing games.
To be fair, there are character creation rules. It's just not what you expect. You expect, you spend points to do this, and you take these things.
The character creation rules are set the thing at what the level you think it should be, right?
Yep.
It's like, if he's really good at it, make him really good at it. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, you want to make a superhero, just do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Right. Which is cool. I mean, it means that when they made the characters that they used, they didn't have to be bound by any kind of weird, point-buy system. They just made people as good as they wanted them to be, or as poor as they wanted them to be. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about the game, so I should just get off my ass and play it sometime. But
yeah, well, I guess my the point I was trying to make is that this is a game that won an award, because I think it just won Best Game at Origins.
I think it won both Best Game and Best Supplement too for Civil War. I think
nice.
They got 2 awards.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't mean to sound like I'm impugning their game design at all. And clearly there are people that can pick up that book and read it and understand it. I am not one of those people, and I found that I am not alone, and I'm pretty good at figuring out how games work.
Right.
So it's one of those things where I think sometimes the idea of editing your game is it goes even beyond the did you do you have a good line editor and do you have a good system editor, because you can still have both of those things and somehow still not be able to communicate effectively to your entire audience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, part of that is also picking your audience, right? Like,
that's true. Yeah.
Not every role-playing gamer is the audience for every role-playing game.
This is true.
So,
Yeah, you're never going to please all the people all the time. Basically, is it?
Well, I mean, if you know what your game is about, like, I mean, we've been talking a ton about Burning Wheel and whatnot. I mean, like, all the Burning Wheel HQ games are very technical games, and like, if you don't like technical games, don't play them. Like, it's just don't do it. You know, you're not gonna. I really love a lot of very low tech games. I dig them, but I also I love when system really matters, and like, you know, there's really crunchy games that have a lot of rules that I don't feel like amount to anything, where you like roll the dice a million times and nothing happens, and those games can have tons of complex equations and still not be satisfying. But I do love games where you know, mechanical decisions really have significance and matter. But if that isn't your bailiwick, then I'd say don't do it. Don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, I think we've done that one there. So the next thing on our list, we're so organised this week. You've written "Becoming Kickstarter," but I had no idea what that means. Have we already talked about that?
We already put that. That was Brian's Kickstarter.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay, it makes sense. Like something like becoming Kickstarter. Who wants to become Kickstarter? What does that mean? Is that some sort of like
nobody right now? Because
no kidding.
It's like Transformers.
It's the whole big old scandal with Above the Game.
Right. Yeah.
There was just to touch on that briefly, and I don't want to really get into it. It was just something funny that somebody pointed out. So apparently, never read the comments on a blog post. Like that kind of goes without saying. But one of the comments on their apology for that game was, "You can't apologize now. Once you've done something, you can't just apologize for it." Which I think is exactly when you're supposed to apologize for something.
I think their point was that they could have done more. They knew it 2 hours before it closed. They could have killed it. And they're saying, you know, you shouldn't apologize when you had the opportunity to do something about it. You should have done something about it. But I mean, at this point, it's the only thing I think is questionable is that I know Kickstarter backers don't get paid immediately. I know there's like a 3-week wait period. So it is not. They wrote that like, oh, the money's out of our hands. Oh, we can't control it. I do not believe that to be true. I don't know if, you know, they have the actual authority to stop Amazon from making the payment, but I know the payment is not immediate. So it may be in Amazon's hands because they do the fulfillment.
That's
money.
probably.
It may not be something where they can just decide, but if the Kickstarter just ended, the creator has not received the funds. So for whatever that's worth.
Right.
Okay, dokes. Well, the next thing on our list here is Valiant Girls.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this is a shout out to your podcast, Daniel.
Oh,
that I was listening.
Well, thank you.
When you were interviewing Meg Baker and Epidaya, and I totally got super excited about those micro games. I mostly got excited about the idea that I could be sitting on the bus and turn to somebody and be like, "Hey, want to play a game?" And they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And I could hand them a business card, right?
Doesn't end up with my head in a duffel bag.
So I went out and I immediately bought Valiant Girls and all 4 of Epidia's games.
Right.
Epidia's required that I draw 4 sci-fi related pictures.
Yes.
So yeah, I did that. They're a thing.
They're on Tumblr? Are they on the blog already?
I tweeted it. I tweeted a picture of them before I mailed them off.
Oh, there you go.
And I haven't received the games yet, though. I don't know.
I've seen some pretty diabolical art on there, and people have actually received their games. So
he just took your pictures and ran, didn't he?
He took my pictures and my $4. No, I mean,
damn it, Epidaya.
I'm sure.
He said, "I'm sorry."
That's right.
And then I downloaded Valiant Girls, which you can get the PDF off of, Night Sky Games.
Night Sky Games, yeah.
And I haven't played it yet. Honestly, I was actually kind of sad when I got it that it was bigger. I was like, micro games. I wanted this to fit in my wallet. I wanted to be able to carry this around. It's a full sheet of paper. It's a whole page.
Oh my gosh! I'm gonna drop my mic right now. Well, I would, but it's on a stand. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I could just remember the rules, but I kind of like the idea of being able to show somebody the rules. Like, no, I'm not just making this crap up. Like, here are the actual rules to this game. So I think I'm going to print it out and fold it up and put it in my wallet, fold it up, and then I can just unfold it and be like, here's the game.
I was going to say you should have it printed on like a sheet that is several business card size sheets, kind of accordion folded.
Yeah.
So you can collapse it down to like the size of a business card, but maybe like 3 or 4 sheets thick.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that was the inspiration for Vast and Starlet was the fact that you could actually do that with business cards. But talking about the nano games or micro games or little tiny gamelets, did it inspire you to want to write one, Sean?
No. Very little inspires me to want to write a game.
What? Because they're all written, or it's just this beneath you, just solely your hands with the.
No, not because they're beneath me at all. Because every time I've started, it's been an incredibly floundering experience, full of frustration and agony. And every time I've gotten anywhere into it, I've always decided I hated the game by the time I was midway through it. I've never been able to stick with a game that I liked beyond the first couple, even finishing writing it, like even in like a halfway process, as I try to explain it to people, they're like, "Oh, okay, sure, we'll do that," and I'm like, "I hate it already. You don't even, I hate it as I'm saying it to you. This is terrible."
I hate myself for bringing it up.
And yeah, kind of, and the most success I've had is hacking Vincent Baker's Apocalypse World. I've made 2 hacks. One is a Deadwood hack called Dead World, and the other one is a Battlestar Galactica hack called Apocalypse Galactica, or Apocalypse Galactica. And those have both been a lot of fun, but they took an enormous amount of work to do, and they're not anything I can ever call my game because the IP is owned by like a bazillion people. I mean, even if Vincent would say, "Yeah, go for it, make the game." For Apocalypse Galactica, I'd have to get Sci-Fi Channel, I'd have to get Fantasy Flight Games, I'd have to get somebody else. I can't remember who else owns one parts of the IP.
Universal, yeah.
And maybe Margaret Weiss, because they wrote a Battlestar Galactica role-playing game. I don't know if they still have a license. They probably don't anymore because they don't keep them. But suffice to say, those people would never give me a license to do this thing, and so I just released it as a free hack, and people.
What about Dead World?
What?
Dead World should be pretty. You'd be able to sort of like disguise that, wouldn't you? I mean, is there anything particular about that would make it so that you couldn't pursue it further? Wild West?
No, that's true. I mean, I could just say the West, right? That is true. I don't know. I kind of like where I'm at with it. Like, I have the playbooks, and you can download them.
Yep, SeanNittner.com if you want to get a hold of those.
Yeah. And I still edit them, and I still tweak them, and people will tell me you misspelled this. I'm like, shit. Then I go back and try to fix it and update them. Apocalypse Galactica, I've done way more work with.
Yeah, but that game is so awesome.
Thank you. But it's been so much work just to do that, and I can't imagine starting from scratch. I mean, I don't know how you did it, Daniel. I don't know anybody who makes games does it.
The job you've got now. Is probably even letting you see how the sausage is made even more, right? Because when I sat down to write Victoria, there was a whole bunch of things that I didn't know, and I think probably that is important in some respects, because you don't know. Because I've used this, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's only when you get to the top of the mountain that you see how high you've actually had to climb. You just gotta to do it, and then when it's done, then it's done. But you've seen the sausage, right? You can see all of the bits along the way, and you can see how
bits are hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
kind of gross, really. I love to eat sausage, but Jesus.
Well, there's so much that you do that has to get cut away. I think there's so much that you're like, oh, this is awesome, and then you go, no, that doesn't actually work, and you cut away, and maybe. No work is ever wasted, because even if you cut it away, you'll use it later, or it'll be an inspiration for something later, or it'll teach you something. But goddamn, is it frustrating to throw out your work? Even if you end up using it later. In the now, you don't see that. You just see, fuck, I built this thing, and now I throw it away. I hate you all. I just don't think I need that level of frustration and agony and suffering. Like, I'd love to make a game, and someday I might, but I really...
seeing your name on the cover of a book that you wrote is something that you know...
Sorry?
It's all worth... when you see your name on the cover of a book that you wrote, that's the payoff. But yeah, absolutely. Like the amount of stuff there's a quote that I put in the book, which is sort of like what I had to keep in mind when I decided to get rid of a lot of stuff that I wrote in Victoria, which was there's a quote by a sort of a commentator on the Victorian period, a guy by the name of Lytton, and I don't know if he's Strachey or Strachey, whether it's a science, but anyway, his thing was we will never, and I'm paraphrasing to a degree here, the history of the Victorian period will never be written. We know too much about it, which is another way of saying that there's no way that I could sum up the Victorian period, and here I am trying to lay this foundation for the Victorian period, and I'm like, the role-playing book's not the place to do this. So thousands and tens of thousands of words just disappeared from the and it took a long time to write it. But like you say, it's never really wasted because it informs decisions and turns of phrase and stuff you use later on. But that was the hardest part. Probably, I'm like, you know what? This all has to go. This took months, but it all has to go, and that's
that would be very hard for me. Someday, if I'm very inspired by something, maybe Sean will make his Cyberpunk Shadowrun Apocalypse World hack, and I will help him with that, and maybe something there will happen.
Hold on.
We almost wrote a game in the car ride up to PAX last year.
Oh, there you go.
It's sitting. Oh, I just dropped some of it.
I was scrolling things on like cards in the car.
like this is it right now.
Right. It's like this. I scrolled notes from Sean and I talking about it. So maybe if we drive to PAX again 10 more times, we'll make a game.
Yeah, that's right.
Trapped in a car.
Yeah. I actually had an idea for a game that I'll never make. The other night, I was on another person's podcast, and I was like, man, it would be cool to have like a Yeep Forum style LARP that you could play online. Like you just make YouTube videos and have one of those situations like the old story about all the dudes that are in bunkers that have to hit the button at a certain time, that all chat with each other like over the video screen. And if somebody doesn't push the button, then the world ends. And then turn that into a virtual LARP that you play via YouTube videos.
It'll never happen. Totally never do that. No.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome, dude. So when are you gonna do this thing?
Yeah, never. It's not going to happen. I'm giving that out for free to somebody more talented and dedicated.
I think you could do it as just like a constantly maintained Google Hangout. Like someone has to carry the torch. Like no one can ever close that Hangout.
Oh.
You just have to,
except Hangouts have a built-in time limit.
They do.
That's the only thing, and like it kind of defeats the purpose for me if it's not like if you wind up without the record, right?
Right. No, that's what I'm thinking. The Hangout on air, but that can only be maintained by the person who starts it, and there's a time limit. So yeah.
What is the time limit? I was not aware of this. I've obviously not come up against it, but
I believe it is 4 hours because it will cut you off right about the end of a RPG session.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes.
There you go. Learn something.
Yeah, because when we were live streaming our Burning Wheel campaign, there was a couple of times when we'd be like, we haven't quite gotten to the end of the session, but it just cut us off. So
right. So talking about killing your babies, let's talk about a baby that's definitely not going to be killed anytime soon. My favorite convention, Big Bad Con. Sean Nittner, go.
Yay! Thank you. Yeah, I hope it's not a convention that's going to be killed anytime soon. So I'm super excited about Big Bad Con. Right now is when I'm going to start hitting GMs up for submissions because I think people have a real hard time thinking about, like, I'm thinking about Big Bad Con for the last 6 months. But, I mean, I've practically been thinking about it since the last one finished. And so it's on my mind, and I want, like, everyone to already sign up and submit their games and be making a schedule now. But I know that's not a reality. Like, people are thinking about other conventions first, and I gotta wait till July, August to really start expecting the significant amount of them. But there are some cool things. Like every year, I feel like I do something new that's very cool, and that's part of what really excites me. Like the first year, Sean and Kristen and our good friend Noam and some dude we totally didn't know formed a band, the Imperial Academy Dropouts, and they played all this nerd rock for us. And like I was like, you don't see that at conventions, but I'm totally doing it at mine because I can.
It was pretty sweet. It was a blast.
It was really sweet. And then we had the Big Bad GM competition, and that went really well, and people were excited about it. And then last year we added the Improv for Gamers workshop, which, like, to my knowledge, we're the only ones doing this. Like, it's a workshop, it's an improv workshop tailored specifically for gaming, you know. And I think people have made connections between improv and gaming a million times, but I don't think they've actually got an improv instructor who like teaches improv to come teach gamers how to do it. Who also is now a gamer. Like I've converted Mia. Oh, actually, not I converted Mia. Karen has converted Mia. Karen is my girlfriend. She's also an improver. She's also a gamer. Mia was an improv instructor who was not a gamer and is now a gamer and now teaches. The two of them now teach the thing. So I'm like, I mean, I think it's as niche as it is. It makes total sense, and it's the only place that you can find it. So I'm very excited about that. And then that was last year. And then this year, the big addition, which is not unique, but it's still something that I'm super excited about, is Jared Sorensen is going to be coming and running, you know, con-wide parsley games. Like I'm going to clear out
gonna be so fun.
one of the giant rooms and set up just a bunch of chairs and a mic. Sean, can I borrow your PA system?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be setting up a mic, and Jared can run giant parsley games. So
what's a parsley game for those people that don't know?
Yeah, it's a live action text adventure, like Return to Dark Castle or whatever, where you
Zork.
Thirsty Nellen.
Sorry.
The Thirsty Nellen. That was the first game of those that I played. Like this cat that you need to fit Thirsty Nellen there.
And it's text adventure role playing. It's pretty awesome. It's exactly what it sounds like too. You give commands like go north.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun when you get like 40, 50 people in a line going up there, and then like person number 39 kills everybody.
Right.
And you have to start over from the beginning.
And you're screaming at them because you're like, "Don't attack the troll, you dumbass! We don't have the sword yet. What are you doing?"
I'll tell you what. I was that person the first year. Like when Jared first started doing that, and Jared has the best, like, I can't believe you just did that disappointed face. Like
I can just see it.
Gave him a stupid answer, and he just goes and sends you to the back of the line. It's humiliating, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And for those of you that want to have a little bit more information about improv and gaming, if you listen to episode 3 of Penny Read, which features Karen, the Karen which Sean was just talking about, then you can certainly hear a lot more about that. Okay, so we've got we have a parsley game, we've got the improv for gamers. Have you got anybody in particular who's running things there, or maybe promoting or introing things there? Or
so Big Bad GM, which is our competition that we've been doing every year, which is 4 GMs come in and they each get secret ingredients that they don't know in advance. It's like Iron Chef, and then they have to run a 4-hour impromptu Fate game. It's always been very popular, and I'm really excited about it. This year, Fate Core will be out. And I am going to get as many signatures as I can on a Fate Core book. Right. I'm going to get Fred's. I'm going to get Lenny's. I'm going to get Mike's. I'm going to get Ryan's. I'm going to get my own. Probably too much. I'm going to see if I can get Jeremy's. And then I'm going to get that of every single judge that was there and all the other GMs that lost.
Right.
And so it will be like a yearbook.
Right.
Fate Core.
Nice.
Like everyone will have something to say for the winning GM. So in the past they've gotten a pin that said like you're the Big Bad GM. Now they're going to get a like one of a kind copy of Fate Core if they win. And I also have like some seriously hardcore contestants this time. Brian Hitchcock is running mock Big Bad GM games where he sits down in front of a table of people and says, "Give me 3 secret ingredients, and I'll run a game right now." Like he's doing it like on the fly games in preparation. I mean,
Nice.
I'm blown away. So that's super exciting. As far as people running things, Jason Morningstar is going to be there running both tabletop and LARP. Jared will be running a few other games that are he'll be running Free Market and
Has that gone on the schedule yet? Because I will just open that tab right now.
Well, the schedule isn't made yet, so the
okay.
events are posted, but there's no schedule. Yes, it is posted in the events. Josh Roby is going to be running a steampunk LARP that looks super cool. Chris Bennett is doing something awesome. It will be the 50th anniversary of JFK's assassination, and so he's running the 63 playset, basically the JFK.
Oh, nice!
Playset, and he's running 3 games of it, all at the same time, and then in the twist, they're going to be swapping elements from the 3 games. He's done this at Go Play Northwest in the past, and he said it was fantastic. And so there's going to be some additional confusion with that. So I'm really excited about Bennett's massive 3-table fiasco game. There's a ton of others. I highly recommend going to bigbadcon.com/events and checking them out. We already have there's already 50 or 60 games listed, and that's honestly just the early birds. Like Daniel doesn't even have his game up there.
Not even me. Not
Let's
even.
go to that, Daniel.
I was going to say I haven't submitted my games yet.
Where's
either.
Victorian Prometheus? Where's
That's right. Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's on the schedule for this evening. Is booking those tickets and paying.
Yeah.
So tell me, tell us about who's going to benefit from the con, apart from all the people that attend, obviously.
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah. So the con supports 3 different charities. One is my left pocket. One is my right pocket. No.
Thank goodness you stopped there, because I was as soon as you started saying that, I started remembering the first Dirty Harry movie where he blows away the prostitute at the start. I won't give it away for you, but suffice to say it didn't finish with the left pocket and right pocket. But anyway,
right.
So go ahead.
So there's multiple ways in which the con benefits several charities. Proceeds from portion of the proceeds from the dealer's room from Endgame will be going to Child's Play, which is a awesome charity to put games in the hands of kids that are in hospitals, which is just so cool, because kids in hospitals, I worked in a hospital. It's a super, super, super depressing place to be, and kids having games makes their lives much, much better. Proceeds from the ticket sales go to Doctors Without Borders, and Doctors Without Borders is one of the highest rating good conscience charities out there, because so much of the money you give, I mean, it's 87%. It's an incredible amount. Goes directly to aid and relief, and they're so low. The administrative costs are so low, and the cost that they have to pay the people that get the donations, the gift department, the development department, is so low that so much of it is going directly to, literally doctors saving people across the world. Yes. Which, I mean, I think is doctors and firefighters are kind of the closest thing we have in this world to heroes. They go and do dangerous things, especially in foreign countries and things like that, to save lives. I mean, it's incredible. And then we have food barrels for the Alameda County Community Food Bank. We ask that everybody who attends brings some non-perishable food. Last year we collected over 400 pounds of food, which was double what we'd done the year before. I'm hoping to, increase by the same increment. I'm hoping to get 600 pounds this year. Right. That feeds so many people in Alameda County, and the Bay Area is a wonderful, wonderful place, but it is an area with a lot of homelessness and a lot of people that are hungry. Right. This helps a lot of folks out in a very constructive building kind of way. So yeah, so if you are considering coming to the con, know that a very significant portion of the money that you spend on the con itself will be going to doing these good things. So
That's right. It's win-win. And so talking about food, Sean, tell me about the food thing. I don't like to bring that up. I won't bring that up last because I know it's your least favorite thing. But tell us about the food.
Least favorite thing. Well, so both years, I would say. Worse the second year. The biggest complaint was about food, and the two reasons for that are that the hotel food is extremely slow and the service is poor, and that other food is not close by. So I have not done as much on this front as I would like to. I talked to the hotel a lot about bringing food trucks into the parking lot. They nixed that. I talked to them about putting food trucks across the street. They could not actually stop me from doing that, but they did say that there's no parking there and they would report them. You know, like they very much said that they did not want that. I have contemplated bringing food in, but I couldn't do that above board, and so I don't want, like, I would have to sneak it in,
Yes.
and so I don't want to do that. So I asked them if they could put like a table of chafing dishes out with food, but unfortunately we haven't quite hit that like minimum quantity threshold where it would make sense. Like it would cost me so much that the con
Yes.
would not only not be profitable, which it again really just needs to be to support charities
exactly,
and make
yeah,
sure the
that's
con
right,
continues. It would be in the red by a lot. So
Yes.
there's no financially feasible way for me to have them bring out food.
Right.
I would effectively be almost like just feeding people for free at that point. I would be better off just giving people food at that
You're
point.
taking stuff out of the food bank.
Right. So anyway, so I've told you all these challenges, but so what I've got them to do is they have reduced the prices somewhat from last year, so they're closer to what they were first year because they had bumped them up quite a bit last year.
Right.
And they've expanded the menu. And they've this time they've added on 3 additional staff during the hours where we have breaks in the games.
Right.
So I'm very much hoping that the food options at the con are better service, better customer service, and also quicker and more options. So,
the reason I brought that up was I wanted to sort of say that that if that's the worst thing you have to deal with at a convention, then that's a sort of a testament to how much of the stuff is nailed down and how enjoyable the convention is. So if you're only going to go to one convention this year, then you'd be crazy not to make it Big Bad Con, because in addition to all of the things that Sean does to make sure that it runs smoothly, the games themselves are really the most important thing. So can you tell us a little bit about how people sign up for games and how you go about making sure that everything that's there is going to be to somebody's liking?
Yeah, well, part of it is that I know a lot of really great GMs. Part of it is from attending a lot of conventions myself and keeping a really sharp eye out on like who I like. And who I've had great experiences with. Daniel, I met you by playing in one of your games, and I was like, and the funny thing is, Victoria is not really like my kind of game, honestly.
No, I discovered subsequently. I'm like, wow, that's Sean must have been gritting his teeth, but then you invited me to run it. So
that's the thing is that Daniel, your game was a blast. Like it's not like my wheelhouse, but I had such a good time playing it, and I attribute that to you being. I mean, I think again, the system isn't like necessarily my style, but I didn't have any issues with it. But my experience was that you were fantastic, and I loved, and you also just seem like a generally great guy. So I wanted to hang out.
Very perceptive, Sean.
So we spent time at Gen Con together, and then I was super elated that you'd come to Big Bad. So a lot of it is just finding great GMs. Some of it is asking, knowing what's in demand and asking for that. Like Burning Wheel games and Apocalypse World games will always be in demand in the crowd of that I'm attracting, which is a lot of indie gamers,
Mm-hmm.
and so making sure that we seed it with plenty of those.
Yeah.
There's actually a really strong push, a growing push in the con for Pathfinder as
Yep.
well.
I noticed Battlefield 2000 was it? Was Battlefield 2000 is in there?
Yeah,
No, Twilight 2000. Sorry, Twilight 2000.
that you can't trust that though. That's Dennis Jordan, and Dennis takes really old school crunchy games and then completely hippyifies them with
Right.
makes them into like fate hacks of everything. So yeah, there is Twilight 2000. It will not play out like the Twilight 2000 15 years ago, which I loved, by the way, when I played it. I don't know that I would today.
Right.
So I think I get excellent GMs running excellent games, and then once all the games are in, then I schedule them all, and then when game signups go, you sign up online, so you know exactly what you're in before you arrive. And then when I see like, oh, this game filled up instantly, like Free Market filled up in half a second,
Yes.
then I look at that GM and I say, hey, will you run another session of it so that there's more openings? Or I'll look to another GM and say, hey, will you run another session of that game? And so I keep trying to provide games that are what people want to play. And I think it works really well. People fill up their
absolutely,
schedule.
absolutely. Yeah, I can testify to the quality of the games that there are there. But you also offer open gaming too, which is, I mean, in some instances it's kind of like the dredge, like you go on there and you've got some guy that really wants to play a game, but can't find somebody to play it. So if they hang out in open gaming, it's possible that'll be entice a couple of people along to play the game. But that's definitely not the case at Big Bad Con.
No, I ask for people to do games on demand, and again, the caliber of the GMs that I've gotten have been fantastic. And we had 3 tables running last year. We'll see how many sign up this year. We might expand that. But so the games on demand room was fantastic. And then the only part of the con that is not like heavily organized and controlled and monitored by me, the open game room where people can go play card games or board games or role-playing games or whatever they want to do. It seems to like somehow magically all on its own, cool people get together with cool games and they make cool things happen. Like I don't control that at all. It just does its thing, and I've really enjoyed seeing the games that have popped up there. And I got this fantastic idea from KublaCon this year, which is that it's really awkward to try and get people into your games. You're like, hey, I'm running a game. Hey, you want to play in my game? I mean, it's like being hit on by a prostitute or something. It's just awkward. Like nobody wants to be part of it. You don't want to be asking people to play in your game.
Just like that. I'll take your word for it.
It happened to me in Vegas at Neon Con, and it was so hilarious and awkward. I was like, no, not interested, and she kept following me around. It was really weird. I had to do it. It was like 3 a.m, and I had to do an interview for a different podcast.
Right.
And she followed me into my room, and I'm like, this is not happening. And she wouldn't leave me alone. I went into my room, I grabbed my podcasting gear, and I started walking out. She's like, aren't we going to stay and have some sexy time? I'm like, no, we're not. I'm going to go do an interview now. I'll see you later. It was extremely awkward. So to avoid that, I stole this idea from KublaCon, which is that they have these flags that you put on a table that says you're looking for players.
Right.
I think it's brilliant because as a player, you feel really awkward walking up to a game being like, hey, can I play with you guys? Like, you don't know if they're looking for people.
Right.
As a GM or player in a game that you're looking for more players, you feel awkward asking people. And this is a really obvious flag where you're just like, oh, hey, look, there's a flag on that table. They're looking for players. Let's go see what they're doing. And then you can say, hey, what are you guys playing? And they're like, we're playing this game you hate. And you're like, okay, cool. You guys have fun with that. I'll do something else. Or they're saying, we're playing this game that sounds awesome. And then you jump in it. And they take the flag down and you play. So nice. I'm stealing that. I'm really excited about that.
Am I allowed to make a suggestion for the flags?
Sure.
If you could also, like, if you've got there with a friend, you want to play a game together, and you could put, like, if you want 2 players, you could put 2 flags up, or some way to so make it numerical. So, like,
yeah, I've been looking at whether or not, like, I want to differentiate between like a flag that has like board game player want it, RPG player want it.
Or you could get really sophisticated flags now. They could be like almost indecipherable and defeat the purpose.
That's right. Like if you see a flag flying upside down and at half mast, then you know they're playing D&D 4.
Right. So I'm really weighing the value of how much data I want to communicate through the flag, or whether it's just no. Seriously, I've been thinking about this, Daniel, or whether it's just best to just be like, it's a flag. A flag's a flag. Like they just used orange flags that were really bright and vibrant, and I would want mine like with the Big Bad Con logo on them or something. But then I have to pay for that to be printed, so I might just have orange. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I confess to setting you up there a little bit. So let's get to the important bit, which is people can find more information out about this at bigbadcon.com, right?
Yes.
And so what's the date? What do people need to do?
Here's the vitals. The date is October 4th to the 6th. If you want to attend, you want to sign up now by going to the site and clicking on sign up. The ticket price for the weekend is $40. There's also a link on the site to book a room. If you're staying in the area, you want to book a room again now, because the room rate will only be good until September 21st, I think.
Yep.
And then the room rate goes up quite a bit. The hotel drops their rate for us almost in half. It's like $170 normally, and it's $99.
Yeah. It's a good deal. There's no question about that.
So, and it's a nice hotel. I mean, it's definitely worth it. So you want to sign up now, and you want to get a room now. And the reason why is A, the rooms will run out, and B, you want to be signed up so that you can reg for games. If you have a badge, then come September 7th, once Game Reg goes live, you can click, and get in all the games you want. If you wait till the last minute, there will still be open gaming available. Yeah. There'll still be games on demand. There'll still be some games with openings, but you won't have as many choices. So go
That's
do
the bottom
it now.
line. Yeah, go sign up for that. Okay, right. So do you have 5 more minutes? Should we take a look at an oldie but a goodie in terms of games, and then sign off for the evening?
I got 5 minutes.
I got 5 minutes.
That's a figurative 5 minutes, of course. We're able to do anything in 5 minutes.
You know the Houdini song, 5 Minutes of Funk?
I don't, but let's pretend I don't. Tell me about the song.
I'm just thinking at some point you should memorize the lyrics to 5 Minutes of Funk. It's quite clever. And then when you have 5 minutes, just start singing that. Maybe not the whole 5 minutes of it, but the song takes 5 minutes. If you're an old school rap fan, it's definitely an oldie but a goodie.
There you go. So check that out. It's probably on YouTube.
I'm sure.
5 minutes of funk. All right. So what do you got for us, Sean Nittner?
All right. So my oldie but goodie is zombie cinema. Zombie cinema is perhaps difficult to display on the
audio vision.
It's not really coming into focus, but it's worth noting that it's in a VHS case. Because it's meant to be an old school zombie movie, so it's the kind of movie that you would get in a VHS case, and you wouldn't. The components in it are not the kind of thing you'd expect to find in a role playing game. They look a lot like board game components,
right?
And the reason why is because there is a distinct board game aspect to it. So this card, which you can't really see, I mean, you could see.
Sean's holding up a card. Looks like just slightly larger than a postcard. He's pulled all these things out of the black.
I forgot.
VHS
I'm going to listen to this and not just see it. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, I'm terrible. And
a little bag of dice came out, or counters.
Right, and little pawns too. There's like little pawns like you have for playing Sorry, you know.
Right.
And what they do is they designate, as you move through the game, it designates how close you are to escape and to any of your characters surviving, and how much how great the zombie threat is. And so your characters start at a certain point, and they have to kind of traverse this thing. And as they start, it says things like zombies appear only indirectly, rumors, delusions, a newscast, for example. So they talk about like U.S. Navy, U.S. government food rations that have gone missing, and radioactive experiments in the town next door, and strange behaviors in the livestock, right?
Right.
But they don't. but it's all alluded to. And then as it progresses, the zombie threat becomes greater and greater till the point where it's like human community collapses completely. Only individuals might survive. Right. So if you can kind of get through the game quickly, then you might actually leave something of humanity behind. If you fail, you might all die, or very likely, even if you survive, you leave the apocalypse behind you. And you kind of progress through this by playing out scenes where you side with one person or another, and so it's all about the drama of the players against each other, like who picks what side, and like
right.
Someone's like, we should get a gun and go shoot him, and someone's like, that's crazy, let's hide in the bunker, and then you have a contest and you pick who you want to side with, and that gives them some advantage if more people side with them, and then they roll, but whoever wins, they kind of progress, and they move along to getting a little closer to safety. It generally means that, few, if any, of you are going to survive, as they should in a zombie movie. Right. But the flavoring, the way the scenes are structured, the way it's like so, the way it's given so much structure around it, like it feels very much like it's a zombie movie. It plays in a couple hours. Like, it's shorter than your average RPG. It plays in about the length of a zombie movie, or a movie. Yes. And it's super easy to start because you just hand somebody a couple cards and they'll say, like, chauvinistic lawyer. Like, those are your 2 cards. You're like, okay, that's my character. I'm going to make something out of that. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's a great game for depicting zombie movies.
Right. Okay, so what do you know when it was published?
I will find out. I imagine it's in the rule book, which is like 7 pages.
Right.
Probably has that information. I am looking right.
Sean is describing exactly what he's doing. You can imagine him looking around on bits of paper.
Yeah,
you can hear
it's literally
just
like,
rustle it a little bit. Rustle it for cinema of the mind, Sean. There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
Excellent.
It's been rustled.
I'm just going to look it up on eBay right now. What's that? Sorry.
2008.
2008. Okay. So, is it still available for sale?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I will look it up right now. You can talk about it, and I will look it up.
Yeah. So this game is one of the first games in my experiences that did something that I think all games should do. It's something we've started doing at Evil Hat. Which is that if you look on the Evil Hat product pages, every role-playing game listed has the number of hours expected for a typical session, the number of players expected, the age that we recommend, and the cost of the game. Just like you'd see on any board game. Every board game says number of players, age, length of game, and cost, right?
Right.
And I just think every game should have that information spelled clearly out. Well, Zombie Cinema was one of the very first that did that. So, again, for the listeners, you're not going to see this. For the viewers, maybe you could see that. In the back of the thing, it says, 3 to 6 players, 12 and up, 30 minutes per player. And I think that kind of information, it also has a little bit of a few other things. It says complexity low, language English, genre horror, type story game. I think that kind of information is information that every game should have, because I don't necessarily want to read 50 pages of your game to figure out what it's all about.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'd like to, and I really like to know how long a game takes.
Yes, yeah.
I seriously don't want to jump into a game and find out that it's an 8-hour game an hour into it. That's a major problem for me. So I like this. I really like that it's up front. It tells you what it's all about. The rules are very streamlined. It's a fantastic little game. Did you find out if it's still available?
I did. I'm about to tell everybody now. It's made by Arkenstone Publishing, which I guess is a call out to the Arkenstone spoilers. That's in Smaug or Smaug's chest, which is where. Anyway, I won't even spoil it. And it's by, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but I'll give it a show. It's Eero Tuovinen, and it's from, you can still buy it. You can buy it for. I'll tell you how much it is right now. This is June the 21st, the summer solstice, 2013. So if you're listening to this some other time, then all I can say to you is that right now it's 20 euros plus 3.5 euros in postage. I'm going to guess that means to go in Europe somewhere, but I could be wrong. In any case, there are other games also by Arkenstone. You get the World of Near, Solar System, and that looks like it. So anyway, you can check them out at arkenstonepublishing.net to find out more information about the stuff that they're what they're producing. So, can you tell me? We've got a sort of a list of things that we run through here at on the podcast when we talk about another game. So, what kind of media would this game be good fit for? Well, obviously zombie stuff. Can you see adapting it to anything? You said it was mostly about the characters. Could it be adapted to some other sort of backdrop?
I think any kind of apocalypse type game. It could be it could totally be a Cloverfield game where the monster is at first in the distance and then eventually like destroying everything.
Right.
It could be an epidemic kind of game where disease is breaking out. First, you just hear about them, and so any kind of like game where your support structure, the safety net around you that you take for granted as part of being like in a civilized country, just erodes over the course of a single game.
Right.
I think it would be great for that.
So like a sinking ship, or maybe a ruptured submarine, something like that.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, totally. I think like a would-be mutinous submarine, where if it blows up, you're all dead, and even
Pirates,
if it doesn't, you could all die. Sorry.
Pirates, maybe like a pirate ship.
Yeah, certainly. Especially like a hunted pirate ship that is like becoming increasingly more surrounded by privateers. Like,
right.
At first you're thinking, oh, we're these badass pirates, but then eventually it's just like, you're overwhelmed by privateers.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. And mostly it's about like the choices the characters make as they do it, and how they get into arguments.
Sure. Okay, so what can you think of anything that might have influenced? Is there anything that's, if you like something that might have caused it to be?
Yeah, it says on the back, inspired by George Romero and The Night of the Living Dead.
Right. Anything games-wise? Any games that share similar DNA that might be a nice sort of step for people that you are aware of at least?
It reminds me a lot of Monster 1244. Which is a game set with a very specific scenario, which is that you are a heretical. The Catholic Church has deemed you a heretical band of. You are members of a heretical religion, the Cathars, and you are basically your city is besieged, and you basically tell the story of the siege and how you are going to fail at surviving. Like it's the story of your doom, right? And in the end, you have to ask the question: will you die, or will you burn for your beliefs, which is you will literally be thrown into a fire and burn alive, or will you convert? Right. And I think there's a little bit of shared thing in there, in that 12 Montague and this, and also Witch Through to Linden's Farm, like we played.
Yeah.
Big Bad Con last year. Has a set kind of progression. In zombie cinema, it's more like the kind of scenes that happen, whereas in Montague, it's more the specific acts that happen. But it's still like showing you as your doom is encroaching. And finally, I've never played it, but I have looked at it, and I just don't have the temperament for it. But Jason Morningstar's Grey Ranks is the story of children soldiers in Poland as it's being invaded, and kind of their eventual demise.
Right.
And so I think any of these games that you're kind of playing towards your doom. Roanoke is another game. Wushu. Where the game starts off by saying like the Isle of Roanoke is a mystery, everyone on it disappeared, what happened, and you kind of play out that everybody disappearing, so in advance that like the best scenario you could go for is that you all flee the island. That's best case. You don't know what worst case is really, but
Right.
So yeah, so I think those games kind of have a similar kind of play map.
Right. And can you think of anything that it's influenced, or anything that's obviously been influenced by it subsequently?
I've heard some game designers talk about it as a cool game. I know that, like I said, I think we're doing this thing on the back now, where with Evil Hat, all of our games are now being marked like it is. I mean, this is the first game I saw that was like this, where they marked how many players and how long and how much, what age.
Right.
Even though it's a really standard board and card game convention, I think it's very atypical for role playing games. So we certainly gathered that. I don't know of any role playing games that can say that this is its grandfather, though.
Yeah.
Or its
Okay,
father.
no, fair enough. All right, so length of character creation versus life expectancy. Now, you've sort of talked about life expectancy, but so from showing up and somebody saying, we're going to play this game, to you actually doing your first thing in character, how long?
So life expectancy, it's worth clarifying that life expectancy is generally the course of the game. Your characters are not usually going to die until the end of the game. Character creation, there's 3 decks of cards called cinema cards. They're of 3 different colors, red, yellow, and green. You take a card from each deck, and that is your character. So I'm going to randomly draw one right now from each deck, and I will tell you that my character is, let's see if I've got them, I'm looking at them, is macho, filled with lust or greed, and wants I want safe elsewhere. I was safe elsewhere, and now disaster. Do I know what to expect? Do I know what's going on? I'm in better shape than some.
Right.
I know what's going on. That's my character. So this is a macho, greedy person who once was safe and thinks that they're in the know and thinks that they're kind of better than everyone else or better prepared than everyone else. I can already imagine that kind of like douchey guy that's like, well, I got a penthouse, I can get us out of here. Like thinks that he thinks that he's safe, thinks that he's got power. We're looking out for number one.
Yeah, and all he's got is a magazine.
What?
And all he's got is a magazine. Oh, we can do it again. A douchey guy with a penthouse. That was a pornographic magazine.
So that was character creation. Everybody draws 3 cards and they describe a character based off of it.
Yeah. Well, I've saw a few posts on G+ by Jason Morningstar recently. Well, this looked to me like a similar sort of character creation thing where you turn over 2 cards, you're going to put them together to make a character. So I don't know if that's necessarily...
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Carolina Deathcrawl. That's his new game, which I just got. I am the first owner of these cards because I heard about it and I bought them, and I was customer number 0.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I literally bought them like 15 seconds after Jason tweeted it. It was just good timing. But yeah, so this game is, so you were talking about, children of it. Like this game has 2 cards. There's a bunch of cards, but a left and a right side card, and one of them tells you your first name, and the other one tells you your last name. The first one tells you your rank, and the second one tells you what unit you serve in. The first one tells you one descriptor, like veteran, and like a potentially a positive thing, and then the second one tells you a negative thing, like imposter or deserter.
Right.
And then the first one tells you something like choose between your honor and your duty, be a leader, and have men follow you straight to hell if necessary. And then the second one asks you a question like, what is your debt, and how can the character to your left help you repay it? Right. So there's all this like kind of information about your character, and then when you do certain things, I don't know what those are yet because I haven't read all the rules to it. You flip it over to like the bloody side,
yes,
where there's blood splattered all over it, and it has different information there. So
cool.
This is a competitive role-playing game where probably I think only one of you will survive the Carolina Deathcrawl.
Awesome.
Which I think is interesting. Like I haven't played a lot of competitive games. Zombie Cinema is a little competitive, but once you kind of figure out how the system works, you realize your best bet is to alternately fight and agree with people. Like if you always fight with people, you will fail, and if you always agree, you will fail. You have to kind of spice it. You have to kind of pick and choose. game. I don't know the mechanics of Caroline Death Call yet. I've read them, the basic rules a tiny bit, but I haven't really processed it enough to know the actual gameplay. So
right. Okay, well, I think that the next one I've got here is emphasis of stats skill. So, are there any stats or skills with them?
No.
Is it all? It's all theatre of the mind. Okay, perfect. No supplements. I don't suppose there's no supplements or expansions for it that you're aware of.
No, except for I know some people who have. I mean, you were talking about hacking it. I think
Yes.
the one thing you want to do is the little playboard that shows the zombie progress. It's got like 12 entries on it that tell you like what the zombies are doing, and I think if you were to hack it to another setting, you would want to remake a new playboard.
Cool.
Where you said like, you just kind of reskin those things for whatever the threat was.
Nice.
But no, I don't think there's any printed. I don't think there's any published supplements for it.
Okay. Anything particular about interesting ideas, systems, or concepts? Something that's really unique to it? Well, I think probably we've covered that. Also, there's that cards for creating the character at the start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the very structured scene framing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the board is probably like the big thing, like as far as role playing games, who uses a board for moving the game along.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it controls the pacing, it controls the mood and the ambiance, it controls what can be in a scene. It's the engine that makes the game happen in the time that it's supposed to happen.
Right, and that's sort of leads me to the last thing, which is something that Sean and I've been talked about before, which is how is non-combat interaction dealt with? Because that was really a thing that we identified was not well done in a I don't want to say a lot of games, but that was something that really set games apart, at least as far as I felt, is how much emphasis is there on making the combat really accurate or at least really crunchy, and how much is there dedicated to figuring out social interactions. And I guess that's mostly about social.
All conflicts are resolved exactly identically, which is both people roll a die, and if you're helping, so if let's say the Seans are on one side of a conflict.
Right.
Well,
So
because
Sean's
that
agree,
only makes sense.
and the Daniels disagree. So, so the Seans would each roll a die, and Daniel would roll a die, and whoever had the highest one wins the conflict.
Right.
And so the Seans have a higher chance of winning because we're rolling 2 dice. But if Daniel wins, then both of us get hit hard. I mean, both of us get hit. So since you're trying to all survive,
yes,
it is more a detriment to the overall survivability of the players for Daniel to win, because now there's 2 players that have gotten closer to being eaten rather than 1 player that's getting closer to being eaten.
Right.
And when you move ahead, you can help someone out. So, if we won, then both of us would advance and you'd go back. But one of us, if we were generous, could go back so that you advance, so that you caught back up, and then the net result of all of that would be that one of us stayed in the same place, you stayed in the same place, and one of us got ahead, and we would inch ahead a little bit.
Yes, yeah, I see.
That's maybe the smartest way to play the game, but that's of course never what happens. I mean, people just no, I want the gun. No, we're gonna flee. No, it's very petty often, and sides don't get formed intelligent. Don't get formed with the best chances of escaping in mind. They get formed with how the people align themselves. And even if I have 3 dice and you have 1, we could still all roll poor. It's just whoever has the highest number. So. So it's the granularity there is very small,
Right.
And then you just describe how you win the conflict, and you can use your the little character cards as inspiration, or you can use events that have happened in the game as inspiration, or the role playing that got you up to the point of the conflict as inspiration. But then you win that conflict and move on to the next scene.
Right, and all players, no facilitator, or is there a facilitator or something?
All players, yeah.
Right,
no
there you go. All right, well, unless anybody's got anything else they want to bring up, I think that is going to be penny red for this week. Anything else from the Seans?
I got nothing.
You've
haven't had anything
so
for
well.
a while. Yeah,
you did,
and I'm okay with that.
Oh, there you go. how very magnanimous of you.
I was blabbing a whole lot.
That's okay. That's what guests do. It's hard to shut them up sometimes. So
there's a mute button.
That's true. Yes, I'm going to mute Sean Nittner right now. Watch his lips move. Let's see how long he does it for. Anyway, so check back again with us, Sean, so that we could get some more information about Big Bad Con as things start to solidify in terms of who's signed up for what and what games.
Oh, I wanna put out one thing. Hey, Luke, come to my freaking con.
Excellent. So Luke Crane, yes, come to. He was there. He was there last year. I'm going to have to add on an extra couple of minutes here because I want to ask, because we were playing Sean Hayworth's The Gift, and I doubt that we were unique in doing something strange happening, but there was I don't want to give it away what happens in the game, but suffice to say, I know the story. I don't think anybody really anticipated happening what was actually going to happen. You handled it very well, Sean, but Luke Crane poked his head round the door more than once to look at how things were panning out. I was gently ribbing you about the fact that you were going to be in trouble with Luke Crane afterwards. And did you get any feedback on that whole thing?
The feedback that I got was number one. There's no spoilers because the gift kind of like it has a really strong starting situation and then no like.
Okay, well I didn't want to go. Okay, well then maybe
point.
set it up then, so it's not too inside baseball. We've had some pretty heavy inside baseball bits here, so
yeah. So it's like the setup of the gift is pretty straightforward. Like 4 elves come to 4 dwarves to sort of rekindle old friendships and bury some hatchets, and one of the elves forgets to bring the customary gift to the dwarf prince who has just been crowned, so the situation is kind of all tied up in this social faux pas that the elves have made, and you kind of have to settle this issue of like a huge breach of etiquette. So
and how is it usually resolved? Like, what do people generally do in this situation? Try and sort of smooth things over between the two groups.
I've run the gift 5 or 6 times, and I've never seen the same result. I do not think there is a usual result.
No, I think there's recurring themes that happen often. Most of them involve a bloodbath.
Yes.
There are 2 characters in the game that are set up from the very beginning to have tragic endings. One of the dwarves is like one test away from being overcome by his own greed and going insane. Mm-hmm. And then of course there's an object in the game that is worth like kingdoms worth of wealth in one particular object. So
it's like the Hope Diamond. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty much like oh hey, that could buy everything. And so that is guaranteed to set that character off.
Right, and that character basically cannot survive the game because of that, because of the rest of that thing. And it's one of those things where there's no way to make change for it.
Yeah.
I can't be like, hey, Daniel, I know I owe you $20, but can you just give me change for the Hope Diamond?
That's
like,
right.
That's impossible, right? You know?
That's right. Yeah.
And then one of the elves has is one test away from just seeing too much death and destruction and slinking off to the west to wash his hands of the horrors of eternal life. So the recurring themes that I can imagine and that I have seen come up in this game are bloodbaths. I know we'd played once. I played in Sean's game where my character lost a hand and then was imprisoned by the dwarves forever because elves can't die,
which is a long time for an elf.
You're immortal, right? You'll live in that cell until they rot in their graves, right? Mm-hmm. So
yeah. But in this particular case, we had an array, like the dwarves and the elves arranged a marriage between their 2 peoples. Like
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah. There was a like even Luke was like, there's an elf, like a dwarfy elfy marriage. What happened?
Yeah,
but if I got in trouble for anything, it's because I was way too lenient with one of the players for letting him just like roll a whole bunch of dice when I should have just been harsher about it. Like in my home games, I'm I get comfortable with people, so I can be way more of a dick about stuff. Just be like, no, don't try and pull that skill in there. What are you doing? But yeah, it's a new player and like it's a con game, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, just roll like all your dice.
Burning Wheel is the loosest of all the games about what you can use. Like they got better with gold, but in each successive game, it became much more clear. Like, yeah, this is what will work in this scenario. No, you can't use your writing skill in a sword fight because the pen is mightier than the sword. No.
Yeah.
Writing skill is for writing. You're in a fight. Bone up and grab your crappy sword skill and deal with that. But still, it can be. People can really, especially in that game when the characters have a lot of skills. It sometimes is hard to get people to stop trying to find more that they could use to do something.
Yep.
It happens.
Yeah. Well, the reason I brought that up was I just wanted to illustrate that just because the rules are written a particular way does not mean that any designer, Luke Crane as well, is going to be annoyed with the way that that things turn out. So. Have fun with your games. Don't be afraid of people. Don't think you're going to get in trouble for doing things one way or the next. And if you want to see what a great guy Luke Crane is, come along to Big Bad Con if we can encourage him to.
If we can encourage him.
If we can, he was there last year.
This is me now exerting social pressure on you, Luke.
Good. Oh, good. We've managed to tie up all the loose ends. Thank you very much, Sean Nittner. So thanks for being on the show, Sean. And it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And goodbye from other Sean.
Yeah.
And until next week, keep talking the walk.